Hello guys, this is Poch from 6 or More, and we're back with Brute Math 2, a general look on total equipment value. So, we're gonna be focusing on the 4 equipment that I prefer on Kayo Armed and Dangerous, Scowling Fleshbag, Gauntlets of Tyrannical Rex, Beaten Trackers, and last but not the least, but certainly the most complicated one, Savage Sash. So, all of these equipment block for a general amount and deliver unknown value. In this case, Scowling Fleshbag has 3 cases for unknown value, the best being an IP1 or a similar effect. IPing 1 would deliver you plus 3 or 4 value since they essentially lost a card from their turn. Second case would be delaying death by 1 turn. So, delaying that extra card of damage would essentially allow you to live throughout that turn. Then on your swing back, you could end the game or send them to no cards except for the one that they'll be arsenaling from the Intimidate. Lastly is the fail state, which is delaying a card, then it just gets sent next turn. So it essentially did nothing and only blocked 2 and gained nothing. So scenario 1 against would be like a brute pitching any blue and sending a buck wild. You could opt to Scowling here, and if you intimidate their blue, they couldn't do anything with their turn since they'd be left with a bare fangs or any red card. Of course, there is a risk that there could be a yellow card, and they'd still be able to swing with their claw, but they'd be stuck with the blue card. Alternatively, a similar situation could also happen with Dio, when Dio is forced to play a boom grenade from their hand, then send a attacking turn. You may opt to use your Scowling Fleshbag such that you can preserve your hand and waste, quote unquote, that cranked boom grenade. Of course, Dio players can play around this by ending their chain with the boom grenade uncranked. Scowling Fleshbag scenario 2 would be that just delaying that 1 card of HP such that you could swing back and potentially end the game or strip all of their cards from their hand. So this is an example of a pop-off Syndra turn that is from a 5 card grip as well as a Mask of Momentum trigger. So this is essentially one of the best turns a Syndra could have, and Scowling Fleshbag would allow you to survive this by blocking for essentially 6 HP, since the value that they have from Blaze Headlong won't be realized if the game ends immediately. And of course, scenario 3 would be the opposite of this. If you can't kill the Syndra, the 4 damage just gets sent next turn, and the tempo that you gained won't really matter. Scowling Fleshbag only blocked for 2. Next up, Gauntlets of Tyrannical Rex. So this one would block 3 since it's a temper to arm piece and give you an unknown amount of value. 2 concepts would be to convert pitch hands. T-Rex would allow you with a blue and a yellow pitch to do a wild ride T-Rex ender, maybe a wild ride T-Rex swing big. This would also allow you to convert Buckwild T-Rex swing big hands on 2 blues. And additionally, if you have an extra floating resource because you pitch 2 blues from a Blood Rush Bellows, you could do Blood Rush Claw T-Rex into a swing big. So generally, as well, the longer the games, the more triggers for T-Rex would show itself to you. Then there would be a second cycle breakpoint spam wherein you could send Buckwild into T-Rex and Claw. Rough averages for the value of this action trigger would be around 2 for aggro matches, since if your game lasts around 4 rounds and your pitch isn't optimal for half of them, that would give you 2 triggers. Of course, if your pitch is optimal for all of them, you'd already be winning and you won't need the T-Rex triggers. Or if your pitch is unoptimal for all of them, you'll already be losing, and Apex as the opposing gloves won't really matter too much as well. Controller mid-range matchups is where this arm piece shines. It could get you up to 5 triggers, generally 4, but 5 plus could be a good standard, especially with the rise of fatigue decks such as Pleiades. So a sample of the T-Rex endgame scenario would be that Buckwild T-Rex Mandible Claw, sending 5 and 4, giving you 2 breakpoints on 3 cards. If your opponent is at low HP, this would allow you to strip their entire hand, and you could arsenal a card that could potentially set up for a game ender. In this case, it would be a Buckwild Claw into Run Roughshod. Beaten trackers is something that comes in and out of KO lists depending on who's the pilot. Some would have only beaten trackers, some would only have scabs, some would have both. But generally, beaten trackers is a block 1 with unknown value as well. And the value math would end up depending on when you use the beaten trackers. So of course, there's a vigorous smash up in KO lists right now. So you could send a Bear Fangs, pitching a blue, then popping trackers to send a claw on vigor. Savage Feast can also be a trigger for beaten trackers, and it allows you a very high damage turn with some reliability, as you could control what you discard to an extent. It would also allow you to high roll a bit with Beast Withins. So Savage Feast is a really good card to have when you are running beaten trackers. And of course, the 4-card grip with the Bear Fangs, which is really crucial when you're going second and you don't want to brick on your very first turn. Then of course, there's the 5-card grip, Blood Rush Bellows. You could just rip at trackers if you don't have a Wild Ride, Buckwild, or any Go Against source in your hand. So at minimum, this would give you at least 3 damage if you're able to convert it properly. So a sample of the value math would be Bear Fangs, pitching a blue, popping the trackers, getting a Might, sending it for 8 and 1 Might token. The Mandible Claw would get you 3 damage, Swing Big would get you 8 damage, pitching another blue. So that would be a 20 total value for the turn. But if you didn't have beaten trackers and you opted for the safe play that scabs would push forward, you could just block 3 with your Smash Instinct, pitch your Agile Windup, send your Swing Big for 8, arsenal your Bear Fangs. So you block for 3, you send 8 damage, and you arsenal a card which is generally worth 3 value. So that's a 14 value turn. So the beaten trackers would single-handedly swing you 6 points of value. Lastly is Savage Sash. This is the most complex because it has the most potential use cases and the most knowledge checking on when you can use it. So there are generally 3 functions. It's to push damage, to set up combo turns, and to maintain your tempo. Generally, your Savage Sash would block for 2, and it would gain you 3 damage because it will allow you to sneak in a claw, as opposed to just sending your hand raw. Pushing and maintaining would allow you to salvage your turns from bad all-red hands, and with especially Savage Feast, this would allow you to net around 6 value as opposed to not having Sash in the first place. And setting up combo turns with Blood Rush just allows this card to have crazy value, as we'll see later. Of course, we need to start with the fail states. First would be blocking 0. This is only possible against decks that could destroy equipment. So with assassins, they could run Shred. It would be blocking for 0 and it will die at the end of the chain. Alternatively, Jarl could put a -1 counter on it and later on mangle it or send it to your graveyard with Frozen to Death. Fail state number 2 would be just blocking for 3. Generally, when you're forced to block 3 with your Savage Sash, you'd already be losing, since you'd probably be at 1 HP and you need that one block break point to save yourself. Or you won a close game by blocking 3 with it, but most likely you failed to see a potential Sash turn earlier in the game, and that is a fail state in itself. So here is a quick chart on when you can use your Savage Sash. I will be explaining some of them in the next few slides, and the rest would make sense. So to gain more than 4 or 5 value, which is the default for the Savage Sash, you would be wanting to play it on Blood Rush turns. You would be wanting to use it to fix bad hands, especially those with Savage Feast, or maybe you have a Vigor and you could pop your Sash to send a Swing Big. You would be wanting to use it to fish Beast Within, or you could play it to high roll 5 card hands and convert your entire 5 card grip as early as possible. So this is one of the default ways to use your Savage Sash, which is just for raw 3 damage. So on a 4 card hand, normally Kayo would be sending a Wild Riot, Claw, Bear Fangs. That's 638. But alternatively, a possibility with Sash is you could send Wild Riot Pulping into Bear Fangs. Be above would net you 17, below would net you 20 damage. So Savage Sash gained you 3 damage on top of the 2 block. So you got 5 total value from your chest piece. Another use is using Blood Rush turns, which has a similar effect. This would allow you to send more cards during your Blood Rush turn. So in this case, we could be able to send Blood Rush Bellows, Mandible Claw, Bear Fangs on 2 blues, arsenaling a Wild Ride, for example. But alternatively, if you popped your Sash here, you could send Blood Rush Bellows, Mandible Claw for 5, Wild Ride for 8, Bear Fangs for 10. The total damage calculations would end up with a 5 damage net for the Sash turn. So with the 2 block, that would be 7 total value. Note that we ignored the Might tokens and the T-Rex activation since those ones are present in both calculations, so the net gain wouldn't really change. Last would be damage high rolls, so this would be converting your 5 card grips as early as possible. So with a Wild Ride, Mandible Claw, and Bear Fangs, and 2 blues, 638, as previously said, is possible. But if you have an extra spare card, let's say in this case it would be Savage Feast, that would net you an arsenal for 3 value. So that's 20 total value, 6383. On a 5 card hand of this same scope, if you were able to high roll the Wild Ride catching another Wild Ride off the top, rather than discarding the other Wild Ride, you would be able to send Savage Feast, presuming it has Trackers or Agility, into Wild Ride, into Bear Fangs off of a 5 card hand. Since this would only need a total of 3 pitch, and you'd be able to send all 5 cards offensively for a total of 26 value during that turn. And generally, damage now is better than damage later for KO. So this is more than just 6 value. There's a theoretical heuristic, let's say 2 more points of value from just converting your cards now than later. And of course, there's Blood Rush. You would have the exact same turn as the previous one, but with a 4 card chain for your Blood Rush Bellows, this would net you 31 value on a 5 card hand, as compared to the no Sash version that would only be approximately 24 value. So for using a Savage Sash, the decision points would be, what is the game state? When do you need to push damage to gain tempo? When do you need to maintain your tempo and save yourself from bad hands? And when do you need to set up for massive blowouts? You'd also need to know what cards are available to you. Pushing damage needs go again cards, or your beaten trackers up. Setting up needs you to wait or have a Blood Rush Bellows in arsenal. maintaining needs you to have a bad hand to fix. And sometimes you'll never have a bad hand to fix. Another factor is that has your sash already blocked? The 2 value from the blocking is a huge part of what makes Savage Sash so good, but sometimes it might be correct to just rip it raw without blocking with it. Generally, this is through Bloodrush Bellows turns or simply unsalvageable first turn hands. And last but not the least, what are the matchups that you need to play for that high roll potential? When do you need to convert your entire 5-card grip? When do you need to start fishing for Beast Within? Those are really good questions that you'd need to ask when you're playing Brute, rather than just ripping your sash blindly. So, the key to playing Brute is never failing to see the lines and possibilities that you could get from your deck. Otherwise, you'd just be playing a really good value deck, but you'd be missing out on potentially 15 points of value on the high end just from your equipment alone, which is a huge skill gap from a class that's generally perceived as easy to play. So recognizing your hands could lead to maximizing your equipment value. And once again, this is Watch, otherwise known as 6 or more, and this is Brute Math 2, a general look on total equipment value. If you like the video, please like and subscribe, and follow me on my social media as well as this YouTube channel. Thank you everyone, and have a nice day.